Hello, and welcome to the South Coast Artists Index, where artists, performers, and writers, as well as curators, directors, and supporters, anyone with ties to the creative community, drops by to introduce themselves to you. We'll talk about their beginnings, their vision, their passion, and so much more. The South Coast Artists Index podcast is brought to you in part by Heavenly Spirits, who invites you to celebrate the art of life and creative communities everywhere.
Hi, this is Ron Fortier with another episode of the In Focus podcast on the Artist Index. And today we have a guest who is, I hate to use the word unusual, but craftsman artist, falls into a specific category that you will find out about. Quite amazing. And I'm going to ask our guest to, as usual, introduce themselves and spell their name.
Hi, I'm Chris Donovan. First name is spelled with a C-H-R-I-S. My last name is Donovan, D-O-N-O-V-A-N.
Do people ever try to put three N's in your name?
No, they end up getting all the vowels wrong. That's what they do. They get all the vowels wrong. So that's, yeah.
There's always something. There's always something to names, even the simplest names. And in a way, I'm so glad that we don't have a lot of guests from Rhode Island, because this Rhode Island has more spellings of what, Lisa, than anywhere else in the country. So Chris, I set it up by saying that it is a very unusual for us, because we've never had one before. So you're the first, you may be the last, but you do fall into, wait a minute, William Kennedy worked for Reebok doing, old timers like us call it sneakers, but I guess they call them shoes. In Europe, they call them trainers. So what is it exactly that you do, and what category of the arts does it fall under?
I design shoes, and I fall under the fashion designer label. So I start from sketches to prototypes, and then I go to the factories and have them made.
Now that's an unusual, again, using that word again, unusual subset or niche of the fashion industry, because whenever you think of fashion, you think of haute couture, runways, models, and so on and so forth. Nobody's looking at their feet, so I'm sure in the shoe design, fashion design industry, it's a little bit different. Tell us about that.
With accessories, shoes are considered an accessory. But when you consider that the average woman has probably 30 pairs, and I can tell you that nothing makes a woman happier than to get a new pair of shoes. Shoes, there's a lot of shoe people out there. And it's a subset of fashion. Sometimes they go with the outfit, sometimes they set the outfit off, sometimes the outfit is built around the shoe. So if you create something that kind of blends art and wearable fashion, it can be the subject for the whole outfit. My shoes are a bit different than most. And so I do get a lot of attention because of that.
Okay. The thing with women, and this is speaking as a former top selling employee of the Tom McCann shoe business, 1342, that was our store number in North Dartmouth, the Narragansett district. Fit is a problem, and I found that it ranged ethnically, using that term. We had a lot of immigrants coming in. Their shoe size, their feet size was so totally different from let's call it the Yankee Doms.
Yeah.
Very, very different. I mean, we've got a C width whereas you have the Yankee Doms with triple A heel and A, in some cases double A width. People are like, what the hell is he talking about? The heel has its own size as does the ball of the foot. And that was always difficult. So other than just fashion, and for those who can afford art on their feet, because that's basically what you do, do you have people who turn to you to, let's say, hey, if I want to have a custom pair of shoes made, because I have this kind of, my wife refers to them as cucumber feet, because she's one of those. uh, and I said, you would have been horrible for me to fit. There's no amount of cork in the world would lift up the platform, the bottom of that shoe to tighten it up. But do you have those kinds of clients as well?
Well, I'm relatively new. I don't know. Do you know anything about my story, about where I came from?
Yeah, I mean, I met you, and we're still trying to figure out. It was at an entrepreneurial program somewhere, and I know you had you were in a profession, or you were in a business, or in a career that's so totally different from shoes. So why don't you just tell us about that?
Yeah. So I was a telephone repairman for like 25 years. And about 50, I got diagnosed with cancer. It was taken care of. But it also made me realize that I needed to do something that I was much more passionate about. And I've had a passion for sketching shoes forever. And so what I did was I ended up at 55. I left my job, moved to Florence, Italy, and went to one of the best fashion schools in the world, Polimoda, and got a master's in footwear, and graduated at the top of my class. Coming back, I started getting noticed. I showed at Dutch Design Week. The Museum of Fine Arts had me come and speak and show my work. But also, it's almost impossible. It's at my age, no one really is interested in hiring somebody to design for them, to, a design house, because I'd be a junior designer. So that's when I decided to start my own line. My first line was only a year ago, like a year and a half ago. So, but what we did was we went back to Italy. I started searching for factories, and I found an incredible. I know since we've visited many of the factories while we were in school, I knew the quality, I knew the fit, I knew everything about the way the Italians do it. They do amazing work. So part of the process has been learning. Starting my own line has been really challenging because it's new to me. And so working with the factories, working with imports, all that is something I've learned along the way. As far as the Italian factories, one of the reasons why they're so good is that one of the most important features of making a shoe is the last they use. The last is the shape of the foot. Okay, they build all shoes on it. If the last is not made correctly, if it's not measured correctly, if it's not, everything about it has to be perfect for the shoe to be comfortable on a foot. So the Italians know some of the best measurements to use to get the most comfortable fit for the most people. And of course, everything else they do is like extremely high quality. So you're never going to feel a seam. The inside is always going to be soft as butter. They're incredibly made. So they do an average width. Starting out as a new designer, you're talking about doing a number of sizes for each style and each color. So which increases your inventory. So when you start talking about adding sizes, so for larger or smaller fits or for widths, it can be done, but it would be very difficult for a new designer to do that. So what happens is I start with a range of sizes that are the most popular. And as we grow, we will start adding widths, because I do get requests, but I don't do custom. I go through the factory instead. So yeah, at some point I'd love to do that. The bigger companies should be doing it because, they can afford, they have the inventory, where a small new designer just wouldn't be able to cater to that range of sizes.
Even back in those days with Tom McCann, and those were the waning years, so we didn't realize it, but it was. And that was a job that I never, I put in the application. We were protesting against the North Dartmouth Mall being built over the Pascamasket Golf Course.
Oh wow.
Club.
Yeah.
And we lost. And then what did we do afterwards? We all went and applied for jobs at the mall. And of all the places, I got hired at Tom McCann, and Manny Souza, Manuel Souza, the manager, became like a godfather kind of a guy. But I'm going to tell you, I learned a lot about the shoe business, the selling of shoes from Mr. Souza, but I learned about the building of shoes from the clientele, because I was amazed at how many were former Brockton shoe makers.
Yep.
And they would come in and they would like give me this smirk and say, kid, I worked X amount of years in the shoe mill, in the shoe factory. And they told me about the lasts, and they told me, that, you get even, the cheaper shoes, you can get 3 size 9s built on the same last, supposedly from the same manufacturer, the whole 9 yards, same lot, and they're all going to fit differently.
Yep. Exactly.
So that gave me a lot of leeway as a salesperson, and the whole premise was that service is sales, sales is not service. So hard to fit, trying to figure it out, so on and so forth. So that was quite an education. Now, I've seen some of your designs, and to use the word, do you have sound like a dad, practical shoes?
Oh yeah. If you go to my website,
Mhm.
it's chrisdonovanfootwear.com. It's an e-commerce store. I have flats, I have loafers, I have flat sandals, I have medium height heels, all the way up to I'm guessing you're referring to the architectural heels.
Yes.
That are quite, yes.
Yeah.
Those are my editorial pieces. Those are
Mhm.
things that, I've sold quite a few of those. I was expecting to get noticed for them. I wasn't sure how popular they would be, but they have been, and they're the ones it's used for magazines and photo shoots and stuff like that.
Right.
But it's one of those things that when you look at a runway and you see the models coming down in these incredible looking outfits, but you're like, I can't even get on a bus with that. You can't fit through the door. But it's not, those are the things that showcase the designer. But when the buyers go into the back, they're going to find things that are more practical and sellable that everybody can wear. And I think the same thing holds true to shoes too. There's a range. You want the art, you want the thing, but how do you translate that? And this has been a really fun part for me, is to take my ideas, especially when you start out with something without any limits and you have fun with it, taking those same inspirations and creating a flat or a ballet flat. And it's been fun. You can do it. And even my ballet flats and my loafers all are a bit different. They all kind of have my signature all over them.
Okay, now a couple of questions, and this is more, for the women who are listening to the podcast. What sizes? What sizes? Talk about sizes. So what sizes?
We start with 36. Okay, it's all European sizes because they're coming from Italy. I think a lot of women know what their European sizes are because there's so much in the marketplace right now. So they go from 36 to 41. And 36 would translate to probably a 5.5 or a 6 in American. And 41 would go up to a 10.5.
Okay, now on the low end, the 5.5s. Now I remember again back in those days where our samples were 4.5, 4.5, 5, I think it was. And there was again, you had the certain ethnic groups that would be coming in with very wide feet, because they there was still back in the day where a lot of people, where they came from, they didn't use shoes on a regular basis, and that's an actual truth. And then there's also, part of is not just cultural, but it was also part of their build. But then again, too, you also had an ethnic or trait of women with very tiny feet. So what I have found is that over the years, in some places, they're not stocking anything under 7, which is, where do you go? You can't even do the little girl shoes, because I remember once upon a time, again, seemed like every 3 years or whatever, there was a Just Like Mommy line of shoes for little girls.
Yeah.
So mom, if she had small feet, could wear the same 3.5 girl shoe as her daughter was wearing, for example. So why is that? Just to get off topic just a bit.
Well, the big companies do it just because they're going to aim for making the most money and what's the most popular sizes. So unfortunately, if you end up either not falling into any of those ranges, whether it's width or length, whether they go beyond 41 or less than 36, it's difficult. It's very difficult. But what I've noticed is there are designers, even new designers. There's been a couple where they specialize in those sizes. So they don't carry the average sizes, they carry the specialty sizes. So they have the larger and the smaller, or they specialize in width. So they're out there. It takes be vigilant, keep looking, because there are answers out there. You've got to find them. It takes a little more work, unfortunately.
Yeah, on the other end of the scale, literally and figuratively, is you've got, it looks like they're overstocked on 9s and 10s, or the 9s and 10s are the only things that are left on the sales. So I'm always wondering to myself, okay, well, if there are always leftovers on the 9s and 10s, you'd think you would ratchet down on the 9s and 10s and bump up on the 5.5s and 6s. So it's a crazy, well, business is business, and it's always evolving. Do you have any of your shoes been picked up by celebrities?
Oh, I've been on a few red carpets. We were just at the Sundance Festival. They're not right now. They're not very well-known celebrities, but I work with a PR firm out of New York, and we're getting into many more magazines, editorial shoots. We've gotten on a few red carpets, gotten into a lot of publications. So yeah, I think things are. It takes a little while to get noticed, being a newcomer, but but it's working, and I think a lot of it has to do. Mine don't look like everybody else's. So when a stylist comes into the PR firm and sees my shoes sitting there, they immediately gravitate towards them because, oh, these are going to look great at this photo shoot I'm doing, because they're different. So yeah.
Now, is there a certain part of the world where that leads in purchasing your shoes? I just off the top of my head, for example, do the Japanese seem to favor your styles, your designs more than the Spanish or the English? I'm just a weird marketing thought?
Right now, what I've noticed, since I have my own e-commerce shop, right now we only sell within the United States. Hopefully, we'll be expanding globally, but I do get a lot of visitors from Europe, mostly from Italy, France, and England. A lot from the Netherlands and Denmark. And we also get a lot of visitors from China and some of the countries in South America. So yeah, I'd love to expand and get as we grow, but there does seem to be a lot of interest. I've done podcasts over in Germany, and I've done interviews in Italy. So yeah, it's been so there is interest over there.
Just based on personal experience, when I lived in Portugal, it's interesting that the workaday woman, their outfits very plain, and I don't mean that in a condescending way. Very natural looking, hair pulled back, comfortable shoes, that sort of thing. But when they go out at night, which is so totally different from here. I mean, some people are coming in at 11, they're just getting up and out at 11,
Yes.
and they're not home until 4 o'clock in the morning. But they really like to put on the nines, just really super get dressed up, and it's a joyful thing.
Yep.
Not a competitive kind of arena. Does that how is that compared to here?
As far as people wanting to dress up,
Yes.
well, I think one of the interesting things was when COVID hit, it was all of a sudden nobody's going out. I had talks with a couple large luxury department stores, and they loved my stuff. But at that time during COVID, everybody's buying slippers, everybody's buying Uggs because nobody was going out of the house. Nobody was going out to work. Now that things seem to be getting better, you're seeing a lot more people, a lot more women who miss dressing up and now want to get back out there and dress. And some of them are going back to the office. They're looking for comfortable shoes that's still stylish, that they can wear to the office. And at nighttime, they like their heels. They like some of the metallics. They like the going out shoes and going out to dinner and stuff.
Yeah, because I mean, it's just been a general trend. Now they've got a category called athleisure.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, I was like, what the heck is that? Athletic leisure? Well, that's like an oxymoron. Jumbo shrimp.
Yeah.
You can't be athletic and leisurely. It's like, one's active, one is inactive, kind of thing. But so with that thought, we've talked about, there have been discussions about the dumbing down of America, so on and so forth, but it's also the dressing down, that in a lot of cases, people don't dress up like they used to. I mean, you look at photographs from, the 50s. I mean, I remember, as a child, just going through the photo album, people were always dressed up. They get dressed up for church, they get dressed up to go to out to eat. Now you go to a restaurant, people are wearing their hats, which my mother would
Yep.
find repulsive,
I think
how-
what people have dressing has changed a great deal, and I think in one sense, what the uniform was, and many times it was a uniform, is what you wore out. It was very strict, very stringent, and so men wore suits. They wore 3-piece suits or 2-piece suits with. In the 50s, they even wore the hats. Women, there was a specific way that you were expected to dress. Those rules have lightened up in a way. I'm really happy about that, because I think, but as far as dressing up and being casual, there still is a difference. And you do see people who do want to look chic and fashionable and dressed up for events. Uh, uh, but in other ways, it has gone casual. It has gone. That's where the athleisure comes from. You know, they want to be comfortable when they're out doing the supermarket run. You know, so they can leave the house. They still look good. They don't look sloppy. They look good. But yeah, dressing has changed, and I think there's a lot more options out there, which I think is great, for you to dress. A lot more styles. There's a lot of different ways of dressing up for work now, than before.
Yeah, once I remember, my mother even wearing gloves to go out,
Yeah.
which was in summertime, the cotton gloves and a hat. They have to have a hat. I'm almost wondering, the Milners are probably a very rare group now. I mean, there's not too many of them left where selling hats. They're not exactly a demand item any longer. Price points. Let's get to that. Where I mean, if somebody's listening right now, we talked about sizes.
Yeah.
Price points.
So these are handmade in Italy, at a factory outside of Milan, and the price ranges from for my flats. They start at $385, and for the architectural heels, they go up to $890.
Okay, now the Manolo Ferragamo, is that
Mhm.
correct?
Yep.
Is that comparative to their price range, or?
No, actually, they're more expensive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because even though, they're more expensive because I think when you look at people buying luxury shoes, there's two groups. One group is buying because of status and label, which is actually a very large proportion of the market. But there's also a smaller niche that are looking to buy a luxury shoe that has incredible craftsmanship, but also not everybody's going to be wearing. Not everybody is going to know the name. The name isn't as important to them as the look or the quality. So that's the market I'm aiming for.
We had a member of the family that had a very professional, high position, had theirs, and it wasn't about vanity or anything, but had the Manolo Ferragamos and had their suits, tailored for them because it was a size issue. The amount of time that they would spend going to try to find something that would fit them was like frustrating enough. So the time is money. So the time they saved, they invested in those tailored suits as well as those Italian shoes, and they weren't more than just a label. They lasted and they could be repaired. That repairing. Let's talk about that. That's almost evaporated. There's only one place left that I'm aware of. Well, two of them. There's New York Shoe Repair in New Bedford, and is it Facinelli's in Fall River? Those are the only two that are left.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know of the cobblers in the area. Yeah, when you buy it, that's one of the things between fast fashion and buying something more expensive. Yeah, you're going to have it for a very long time. That's going to be much more flexible. You can have them fixed. You can have them tailored, as far as clothes go, and as far as shoes, they last a really long time, and the soles and things can be repaired. They can be replaced if they wear out. So in that sense, they're going to give you years of comfort, and you're able to keep them for a very long time. Yeah, the quality of a luxury shoe as far as the materials go. When you look at the bottom of like one of my women's shoes, it's made with what they call cuoio. Okay, it's an Italian term. It's a specialty leather made for the bottom of shoes. It's it's wafer thin and lasts forever. They can take city streets. They know how to do it. So they're beautiful, but they wear like iron. So yeah, the quality makes a difference as far as lasting a long time, and you get comfort with it too.
Yeah, it's funny because when you said that, I had a flashback to my mother when we lived in New York, walking on flagstone with heels on.
Yeah.
It made a sound like no other. It was just kind of interesting, and it wasn't they weren't exactly the most expensive shoes in the world, but there was an elegance there that it just seems we've lost a lot of that elegance and that I don't know, grace style. Maybe it's just a thing about getting older. Suppositions. When people find out what you do, what do they suppose? What do they think? What are their reactions?
I think when they especially when they find out my story, when they look at me, they think, "Oh, you do women's shoes, so you must have been in the business forever." And but then they find out I was a telephone repairman, and they're like, "You did what?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it was, yeah, I was a telephone repairman." And I know when I first, and I dressed like a telephone repairman. I had jeans and t-shirts. I was crawling on the floors. I was going up ladders and working on frames. And all the time I was sketching shoes. I would be sitting at my desk on break times, on conference calls, and I would just sketch constantly. It was one of these things that just filled me creatively as far as drawing goes. And so when I left the phone company and went to Italy, I showed up at Polimoda. Polimoda is like one of the best top 10 fashion schools in the world. And you walk into this Italian villa in the middle of Florence, and it's filled with fashion work by all the students. There's frescoes on all the walls. All the walls are covered in gold leaf. And I walk in and I see all this beautiful stuff, and I'm like, what am I doing here? What did I do to myself? And I was really intimidated. And people immediately were very suspicious of me because they had no idea. In Italy, there are not a lot of people who return to school. They're just, it's not done. And so when I showed up, the teachers had no idea why I was there. Students mistook me numerous times for being the janitor. And then when I remember when I finally showed my graduate collection, a couple of my teachers who worked with me doing material studies and stuff like that, who never saw my design work, when they finally saw what I did, they're like, "You did this?" And I'm like, "Yeah. What did you think I was here for? This is what I want to do." And so they were they were all really impressed. And so it was funny because going from being a phone company guy to design, yeah, it's a leap. A lot of people, it doesn't seem to go, but
Why shoes? I mean, of all the things, I mean, all I can think of is like totally off the path is it in your DNA? I mean, was there a shoemaker in the family? I mean, come on, you must have gotten a lot of, scrunchy face looks, or like nudge, nudge, wink, winks, or like, what you want? You got a foot fetish?
and
Whatever. Yeah.
a lot of people thought that, and
Yeah.
it's funny because when I was in school, high school, and this was back in the 70s, and I think what lit the fire, one of the fellow students, she came in a pair of unbelievably tall platforms, and I watched her walk and thinking, how is that even possible to make a shoe like that? I had never seen one before like that. And so I started sketching it to try to figure it out and as soon as I did, all these questions started firing off in my head going, well, if you can do this, what else can you do with a shoe? And it was such a sculptural piece that I started experimenting with all my sketches. And at first I didn't think much of it, but it didn't end. It just went on. I didn't think it was a feasible career. I came from a blue collar background. You go to a big company, you get a secure job, etc., which I did because design school, not only was it really expensive, but it just didn't seem like how do you become a shoe designer? And in America, there are no shoe schools. There are no places where you can go and really study shoes as far as a degree program goes. So I went on to, and that's how I became a phone company guy. And so yeah, there was but during all those years, I was drawing shoes. I remember when I first met when I started, I started dating Steve, and Steve is my husband now. But when we first started doing it, we'd be in restaurants and I'd be drawing in the back of napkins. And he'd be like, what are you doing? And he goes, you're always drawing shoes. And I go, yeah, well, that's kind of like what I do. And he realized that he goes, you got to do something with this. This is a passion that you have that is really deep seated. You need to do something with it. And so I started playing with the ideas, like how would I go about it? You know? And there was never anything on, I went through schools, I went through looking for something. There was nothing in the area. So the first thing I saw, there was a 2-day class in New York. So for the weekend, I went down to New York to take this 2-day class in shoe design. And the teacher was a European shoe designer. He was also a trend forecaster. So after the first day, he just pulled me aside and he said, you know what, you were born to do this, so you have to go to Europe and get a master's. And I just thought, well, that's impossible. That is just crazy. And I had a job, we had a house. Where are we going to come up with the money for something like that? And but Steve was like, no, you have to do this. We'll do it. And so yeah, that's when I decided to leave the phone company and go to Italy for a year. And it's funny because at the phone company, I'd be sitting at my desk drawing shoes, and I had drawers filled with shoes, and I had my own office. It was a place where I did all my wiring. I worked with the outside guys. On their coffee breaks, they would come in and sit at the desk in my office. And I had Vogues sitting around. And I'd come out and I'd see these guys in their work boots and everything, reading the Vogues. And they never picked up on the fact, like, why do you have Vogues in the office? So when I left, when I put my papers in, they were all like, where did this come from? He goes, you're going to Italy for shoes? And I go, you didn't notice the Vogue? I mean, come on. There was a little bit of a hint here. But yeah, they all thought I was a little crazy, but they were all very supportive of what I was doing.
What about the language? How did you overcome that? Unless you already knew something about Italian.
No, actually, I didn't know anything about Italian. The master's program is designed for a universal program, because when I took it, there were like 15 other students. They were from China, Taiwan, Korea, Turkey, France, everywhere. So they use English as the main language. And it's funny, in Italy, yeah, it's supposed to be in English, but there were a couple teachers that spoke just Italian, a couple of the craftspeople. And so we were like, you said this was all going to be in English. And a lot of us were really having a hard time. And they say, oh yeah, but they're really good. It's like, that doesn't help me. but they were craftspeople, so I was able to watch what they were doing. One was was a sewer, the other one was the actual shoemaker, and you could watch what they did, and it was fascinating. So it worked out, but yeah.
What was the best experience that you had while there?
Oh, again, socially and scholarly, there's two different things here. Social, it changed the way I looked at everything. Being in a foreign country, learning the way they see things compared to what we do, talking to all the other students from all over the world, and seeing the way they view things really changed my worldview. And you got to experience living in Italy, walking down the same streets that were medieval, and you're walking down these little cafes that you would stop in to get your favorite gelato or your pate or whatever you're looking for, and you got to know shopkeepers, and it was a different life altogether. As far as school goes, one thing, being such a big school and so well known, they really took my ideas and helped me sophisticate them, bring them up a level. One of the problems one of the first things I ran into was I was trying really hard to learn it. I had no design background educationally. And so we were working, I was trying to work and be fashionable and do all this other stuff. And one of the teachers came over to me and she said, what are you doing? It's awful. And I started laughing. And it was just like, I'm just trying to do my stuff. And she's like, you're trying to be fashion. And I'm like, well, it's fashion school. Yeah, that's what I thought you wanted. And she goes, no, look around you. Look at all the other students here. And they were all 20 something, beautiful, young. And she goes, they're fashion. She goes, you're not. She goes, what were you? And I said, I was a repairman. And she goes, oh, and she didn't mean anything bad by this. And this whole thing changed my whole direction. She just said, you're crude, do crude. And I'm like, I know what she means. I know what she means. She says, take the same ideas I had as a repairman, because that's where all my inspiration came from before, as it does now. And I took those same ideas because that was my voice. And she goes, and do that. Use your voice. Don't lose it. Don't try to be something you're not. Do that. And as soon as I did that, they fell in love with what I was doing. All my stuff changed. All my designs changed. And that's how I ended up graduating at the top of my class.
And it's a typical example of you be you.
Yeah.
It's authentic. It's you're not as she said, you're not trying to be fashion. Just
Yep.
being you, it becomes the fashion. So
Yes.
it's not forced. It's not forced. We're gonna start wrapping up a little bit, but best design you've ever done on the high end, the hoi polloi, fancy schmancy kind of thing, versus the best design you've ever done for the, use that word again, practical, everyday, comfort, long lasting, all those things.
That's a tough question, because everything that goes into production is I love. Okay, so almost everything I put out, I'm actually in love with. Some of the things I love, my fanciful shoes. As far as the high end goes, my Alpha shoe with the architectural heel. I have another one. I have thousands of heel designs for the future. So there's going to be a whole bunch more coming, and I love them all. But Alpha, if any shoe was me, Alpha, the black architectural heel, is me, and everything flowed from that. My flats, Yeah, I love my loafers. I think the loafers are incredibly versatile, but still retain the same wild folds that Alpha has. It still has that architectural feature, just minimized, to be able to be worn as a loafer. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of, actually, there's another shoe too, Gossamer. Gossamer was designed after, as far as inspiration goes, I used paper airplanes. And I did a whole line of shoes that were just all designed after paper airplanes. And they came out, I love them. And nobody knows, you can't, when you first look at them, and until I tell you, say, this, do you see it? This is where the inspiration from the plane comes from. So whether it's a toe ornament or whether it's a strap on a sandal, the shapes and everything are designed on that.
The whole thing about coming into being as a shoe designer, where are you now? If you had to, plot out that line, this is where I started as shoe repair, telephone repairman, constantly, conscious and focused and mesmerized by shoes, make this commitment. I go to Italy, have this wonderful experience. How many years has it been now?
I was in Italy in 2013. I came back in 2014. And when I left school, I asked my teacher, I go, so where do I go? Where do I go looking for a job? And they were being honest. They said, no one's going to hire you. And they told me that. They're like, but we think you need to share your story and see where this takes you. So it was I did try to get put my applications in, stuff like that. Got no response at all, and ended up. That's when we decided to start the line. So it's taking me in directions I wasn't planning on, and this is. Yeah, I never thought I'd be at this point with a pair of shoes with my name on it, selling my own line online. We're approaching stores now. So yeah, this could be really big, and I'm not setting any limits on it. I'm going to keep on pushing this to see how far it goes. What else do we have to lose? I mean, is this like, I did this crazy dream chasing, and I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep on doing it. There's been a lot of obstacles, but obstacles you can get over. You'll find another way around it. But yeah, it's hopefully will be in stores soon, and everybody is going to know the name Christopher Donovan.
I'm flashing back to I was fortunate enough to we were fortunate enough to go see the Van Gogh in America show at the Detroit Institute of Arts, and when you see a show like that, there's a lot of reasons to get wound up about it emotionally, intellectually, so on and so forth. But practically 10 years time, the amazing output of this man. And I'm looking up on my bookshelf, and I'm looking at Julia Cameron's second book in 25 years. She now is the author of 2 books. The first book was The Artist's Way. The second book, as she has obviously gotten older, as we all have, It's Never Too Late to Return, to Begin Again. And so basically you've had a renaissance, a personal renaissance.
Oh yeah, don't believe what society tells you, what people tell you. You got to do what you got to do. So you can have many stories. You can have a lot of beginnings and ends in your life. So if you have a passion, what are you going to do? Just say, oh, on your deathbed, say, oh, I wish I had. I mean, that's what scared me. It was just like, what happens if my life ended and I didn't even try this? The regret would be massive. So yeah, there's a lot of stories. They tell you, oh, no, it's too late. No, it's never too late. Do it. What else would you be doing? I wouldn't be happy just lying on the beach all the time. I want to be able to do something. I have so much fun coming up with new shoe designs. I don't ever intend on retiring. This is life for me. it's been fun. Difficult, yeah, but it's worth it because I'm just having so much fun with it.
I'm thinking of two quotes right now. One of them was one of the motivational speakers. It may have been Dr. Wayne Dwyer, who said, there are people who live their life with the coulda, shoulda, woulda. They get to that point, coulda, shoulda, woulda. But previous to the coulda, shoulda, woulda, it's the someday I'll. That's like a little isolated island that that in your head, someday I'll. It's a place you're going to go to. It's not just, an affirmation. Someday I'll. That's not an affirmation. It's, you just got to do it. And then General George S. Patton said, most men die at 65. Most men retire at 65 and die 10 years later. There's no purpose in life. The telephone company, for example, you go for the gold watch, the big pension. But I remember this gentleman who lived in a neighborhood who retired with about 6 other of his friends. And within a year, he was working at a grocery store. I called him the tomato cop, make sure that the ladies didn't squeeze the tomatoes too hard. And like, why did you get a job working in a supermarket after working 30 years in that other place? And he said, well, of the 6 of us, and it's only been a year, I'm the only one that's left alive.
Yep.
I'm like, are you kidding me? He said, I think there was no sense of purpose. They didn't plan beyond the retirement,
Yeah. And it doesn't matter, people go to chase something. It's not, it's the purpose is the chase. It's not if I failed at this, hey, I did it. I mean, my God, I went to Italy. And things I never thought I'd ever do in my life, I did. So, but it's not failing, and we're going to keep on going, and we're going to keep on pushing and see where this takes me. And I think everybody should have that attitude of, do what you want to do. Don't live with a regret. If you have a passion, explore it. Who knows where it'll take you?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And one final question, more of a marketing kind of a question. Is Chris Donovan Designs sexy enough in the world of Italian shoes? Like, it's not Manolo Ferragamo, which a lot of people would probably have or do have, difficulty pronouncing, but it's like Chris Donovan, and they're like, tennis? No.
Yeah. Well,
the branding.
Yeah. The branding basically is one thing. The world has plenty of sexy shoes. Oh my God, you can throw rhinestone on anything, and that's what's been done. And what I do is different, and what I do is strong. I mean, when I was in school, I was stopped by the 2 of the directors of the school. They said, your designs are really powerful. And that's exactly what I want my women to feel like when they're wearing my shoes. I want these to enhance your strength. I want these to enhance your confidence that you already have. And I want you to take over the world in them. Yeah, if you want a sexy shoe, are they sexy? Yeah, I guess so. I've been told they are. But that's not the point. The point is to feel, I want you to walk into a room and feel like you want it. And and that's what I want. I mean, too much sexy out there. Strength and power.
Exactly. Yeah. And then that whole thing, it's absolutely okay. Oh God, it's a very fine line to, people are very sensitive about things, but it's okay to be a woman. It's okay to be dressed up and have this sense of power. I mean, it's not just the outward appearance. It's the inner fortitude that's super important. That's for sure. Chris Donovan, thank you so much for joining us and telling us, we're talking about shoes which thankfully I have a little bit of background in. Somebody said, well, you've had a lot of jobs. Well, I'm an artist.
Yep. Yep.
I've had to do a lot of different things, that's for sure. Chris, Donovan, thank you so very, very much. And this wraps up another episode of the In Focus podcast, brought to you by our folks at Heavenly Spirits. They're our main sponsor. And thanks so much. And we hope you join us again for another pleasant conversation with one of the South Coast artists that you probably may not have known about. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
We'll see you next week for another episode of the South Coast Artist Index podcast. To learn more about the South Coast Artist Index, visit theartistindex.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.